Welcome, curious travelers of history. Upon arriving in the New World, Columbus was struck by the fertile lands, flowing rivers, and the gold ornaments of the native people. He described the natives as generous and saw vast potential in the region's resources, envisioning how they could enrich Spain and pave the way for future colonization. Christopher Columbus was an explorer who was born in Genoa, Italy, in 1451. He is known for his discovery of the Americas in 1492. However, he actually never set foot in what we today call the United States. His voyages had taken him to the Caribbean, Central America, and South America. But even though he never went to the U.S., Americans celebrate Columbus Day every second Monday in October. This holiday honors his contribution to opening the Western Hemisphere to exploration and trade. During the late 15th century, some people, however, argue that this holiday should be abolished because of his ill treatment of the natives. When Columbus arrived in the Americas, he was not greeted by people who were wearing loincloths and had spears. The native populations of the Americas had complex societies with their own unique cultures and technology. Many of these societies had been around for thousands of years before Columbus arrived. They had cities, roads, and other infrastructure. They also had agriculture and other technologies that were advanced for their time. What did Columbus actually see when he arrived? Let's find out. Number 4. He saw fertile land. Christopher Columbus landed in the Bahamas on an island called San Salvador. He noted that the island was covered in trees, and there were many animals that were unfamiliar to him. The native plants included broad-leafed evergreen trees, which were similar to the laurel trees back home, but they were much taller. There were also many varieties of shrubs, vines, and flowers. He also saw many different types of birds, including parrots and other brightly colored birds that he had never seen before. Even though it was the 15th century, Columbus understood the importance of nature, and in his journal, he wrote about all the different types of plants and animals that he saw. Even though some of the plants and animals were not useful to him, he knew that they could be used by others. He didn't realize how valuable the land really was until later on, when the conquistadors started to explore further inland. They found that the land was very rich in gold. No. 3. He saw rivers. One of the things that struck Christopher Columbus when he first arrived in the Americas was the abundance of water. He had come from Europe, where there were few rivers and lakes, but here there were rivers everywhere. In fact, one of the first things he saw was a river that was wider than the Tagus River in Spain. The natives told him that this was the Rio de las Palmas, or the River of Gold. It got its name from the fact that the banks of the river were lined with gold nuggets. Unfortunately, Columbus did not know that there were gold mines near the river. Otherwise, he might have become very rich. No. 2. He saw gold ornaments. When Columbus arrived in the Americas, he was amazed by the gold ornaments that the natives were wearing. He had never seen so much gold in one place before, and he thought that the natives must be very wealthy. He asked them where they got the gold, and they told him that it came from the mines in the mountains. Columbus was very interested in this, and he decided to go and see the mines for himself. When he got to the mines, he was even more amazed. He had never seen so much gold in his life. He took some of the gold back to Spain with him and showed it to the king and queen. They were very impressed and gave him a noble title and a lot of money. Columbus continued to explore the Americas, and he found even more gold. He died believing that he had found the riches El Dorado. Number 1. He described the natives as generous. When Christopher Columbus arrived in the Americas, he was surprised by the generosity of the natives. They had never seen a white man before, and they thought that Columbus and his crew were gods. They offered them food and water and helped them to build shelters. They also gave them gold and other valuable items. Columbus was very grateful for their help, and he named the natives Indians because he thought that he had arrived in India. Unfortunately, Columbus and his crew did not treat the natives very well. They enslaved them and forced them to work in the gold mines. They also killed many of them and took their gold. Number 5. He believed that the resources could enrich Spain. Christopher Columbus was a Spanish explorer who was born in Genoa, Italy in 1451. He is known for his discovery of the Americas in 1492. However, he actually never set foot in what we today call the United States. His voyages had taken him to the Caribbean, Central America, and South America. Even though he never went to the U.S., Americans celebrate Columbus Day every second Monday in October. This holiday honors his contribution to opening the Western Hemisphere to telescope exploration and trade during the late 15th century. Some people, however, argue that this holiday should be abolished because of his ill treatment of the natives. In the 15th century, European nations were eager to find new sources of wealth. At the time, the most valuable commodity was gold. So when Columbus began talking about a westward route to Asia, he was immediately taken seriously. The Spanish monarchs were very interested in the idea of finding a new source of gold. They had heard rumors of a land to the west of Africa where the natives wore ornaments made of gold. They also knew that the Portuguese had discovered gold mines in Brazil. So when Columbus came along and said that he could get them to Asia faster by going west, they were very interested. The Spanish monarchs agreed to fund Columbus's voyage with the promise that if he found gold, they would get half of it. No. 6. He saw potential for colonization. Christopher Columbus was an Italian explorer who is credited with discovering the Americas in 1492, though he never actually set foot in what we today call the United States. His voyages to the Caribbean, Central America, and South America opened up the Western Hemisphere to exploration and colonization by Europeans. When Columbus first arrived in the Americas, he didn't know what to expect. He had heard stories of a mythical land to the west of Africa, where the natives wore ornaments made of gold, but he didn't know if any of that was true. What he did know was that if he could find a way to get to Asia, he would be very rich. The Spanish monarchs had offered him a deal, half of everything he found, so he was very motivated to find something valuable. As it turned out, Columbus didn't find gold in the Americas, but what he did find was something even more valuable: a new continent. He saw the potential for colonization and exploitation of the resources in the Americas. He didn't know it at the time, but he had just made the biggest discovery in human history. Well, that's all for today. Thank you for watching. And please, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe.